so much for being here with us today. So we just heard about the money has to go to the global south. How do we do that? So I always start by asking you the elephant, the key question, right? So the elephant in the room is Shell, one of the biggest proponents for carbon offsetting. They actually said they will be leaving the market. And Shell joined Gucci, Leon, Nestle, and other firms moving away from offsets amid repeated indications that huge numbers of carbon credits do nothing to mitigate global heating. Guardian even wrote a story saying that a lot of those carbon offsets were worthless. However, there was also another research that actually has shown that businesses that engage with the voluntary carbon markets are decarbonizing faster and are much more ambitious than those that do not. So I have a specialist here, Diego. So Diego, you have evaluated a lot of nature-based projects. What have you found? Is it true? Are they worthless?
Thank you for having me. Yes, at Pachama, we are a technology company using satellite data and AI to develop models that allow you to verify and monitor projects that intervene the land, carbon projects that are protecting and restoring forests. And we use our data to analyze hundreds of projects in the voluntary carbon markets. And indeed, we have found some projects that have fallen short of their promises. What we found mostly is projects started more than a decade ago, didn't count with the tools needed to establish good baselines and to ensure that their carbon accounting, which was future-oriented and based on counterfactuals, could reflect reality. But we also found a large number of amazing projects that have effectively stopped deforestation in the most dangerous hotspots of the Amazon rainforest. Projects that have reforested giant pieces of land around the world. So we think that while the stories have often focused on the negative side, there's a lot of very positive stories. And what we found as we also work with companies that are investing in these projects is exactly what you said, that the companies that most invest in compensating their emissions with voluntary carbon credits are actually investing much more on decarbonization. And what we're seeing is that the numbers of companies that are walking away is actually a very small number compared to the large number of companies that are staying with their commitment to decarbonize and compensate, take responsibility for not only their current emissions, but their historical emissions. Companies like Microsoft have committed to reach carbon neutrality of the entire history of the company. So
we actually have great stories, actually. It's not just the bad stories about
great
people
stories
leaving.
to tell. Definitely the market needed to evolve, and we're seeing a lot of that evolution, which we're going to be talking a lot about.
So Annette, one of the criticisms of the carbon offsetting is that the companies that are choosing to use carbon offsets are not actually doing their homework. They are not looking at their scope 1 and scope 2 and really trying to push that number down. They are just saying, let me just go there, buy some carbon offsets, and my job is done. SBTi criticized carbon offsets in the beginning. I heard there were a lot of announcements yesterday. Yeah. Could you touch it a little bit about how is the market feeling about carbon offsets now?
Well, thank you so much, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. And I'm happy to be here with Diego, who I very much admire the companies that are really going to be part of this ecosystem in providing greater certainty on real emissions and reductions, removals, and measuring those efforts. So thanks for that question. Look, I think the narrative around this very much needs to change. I think that the reality is that you have a lot of corporates that are very committed to reducing or removing their emissions, and they have targets to do so. And as Diego said, evidence is now showing that those companies that are purchasing carbon credits are also the most on target and the most aggressive in reducing and meeting their own decarbonization targets, which is very important. We firmly believe at the Integrity Council that the voluntary carbon market can play an incredibly important role in helping us get to our goals in the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. But first and foremost, we all have to do what we can in our own value chains to reduce our emissions. And we very much support that. And I think what you heard yesterday is we had some wonderful announcements yesterday, but you heard that those of us involved in this standard setting side, whether it's Integrity Council or Greenhouse Gas Protocol or VCMI, or I know all these acronyms, or the Integrity Council, that we are firmly committed to align on our work, and that we are sort of all believe that the voluntary carbon markets, the high integrity voluntary carbon market, can really make a difference and has to be part of our plans to reduce emissions.
Annette, for those in the audience that don't know the size of the market, so we talked about the size of the compliance market before. Can you give us an indication of what's the size today and what it's probably going to be by 2030?
Well, the size is very small, and as you know, today, with all the overhang and questions and the very negative narrative around this, the market's quite small, so maybe like billion, 2 billion. I think there's really great demand, and our hope is that we could really scale this market up if it has high integrity to 50 to 100 billion. We want to really
Let me just say that
expand.
again, because it's a big number.
50
50
to
to
100
100 billion.
I mean,
This is the size of the market by 2030.
We're really hoping, absolutely, but only if we achieve our goal, which we're very committed to do, which is to have high integrity carbon credits. So we really are fully on board and committed to implementing our core carbon principles and our assessment framework and getting the supply side right. And I think that the demand will come when corporates have a much better experience, both in having confidence that the credits that they're buying are high integrity, and when they don't have to do what they do today, which is have bilateral transactions where they have to do a lot of due diligence, and even then they may read about themselves in the press. So we can't scale up a market to the size that we need to meaningfully contribute to our net zero goals unless we create a market structure that has all the building blocks of any other high integrity, successful, liquid, transparent capital market. And that's what we're trying to do with carbon credits. You probably know I came from a regulatory background. I was a commissioner of the U.S. Securities Exchange Commission, and for 7 years I ran the Securities Exchange Commission Division of Trading and Markets, which oversaw all of the U.S. securities markets. And we did all of the regulatory work for all the investment banks, broker-dealers, clearinghouses, and exchanges. So what we've really tried to do is to take those building blocks, which are sort of well understood on the regulatory side, and translate them and transform them into the voluntary carbon market. And I think if we do that, and we're successful at it, and I'm confident we can be, it's going to make a meaningful difference.
I'm just going to ask a question, which is labeling. And so in the European market for ESG funds, even though the intention was not that from the regulation, they actually issued an SFTR Article 6, 8, and 9, and the SFTR Article 9 is the dark green fund. And actually, that really propelled the market because the ultimate investor, they knew that Article 9 funds were the pure green. In the VCM, are we going to see a label to say, a stamp, look at this project, this is a high integrity project?
Yes.
When?
Help is on the way. It's going to be called the CCP label, the Core Carbon Principle label. And the Core Carbon Principles are our 10 fundamental principles for how you determine what a high integrity carbon credit is and how it's validly measured and that it's additional and permanent. We have 10 principles. And those principles apply both to carbon crediting programs that issue credits as well as to the what we call carbon categories, which are like the methodologies as well. So we've already started our assessments. I'm delighted to say that as of yesterday, we were able to report that carbon crediting programs representing 98% of credits currently in the market have applied to us for the CCP labels. So they've all applied to undergo a rigorous assessment to ensure that their programs satisfy our criteria. And then we have also begun our assessments of the carbon methodologies, some of which will be done internally by our staff, and a number of them which are obviously more sophisticated and require more analysis. We're putting together multi-stakeholder working groups, bringing together experts from throughout the market to assist us in doing those assessments. And our hope is that by sometime in the first quarter of next year, we will have carbon crediting programs that have the CCP label, who will be in a position to issue credits of categories that are CCP labeled. So hopefully we'll see the first credits being issued using this high-quality label in the first quarter, or towards the end.
That's music to our ears, honestly, because I feel that this will bring the trust that is required, which is so needed. So Diego, just coming back to you, your company's mission is to help solve climate change by restoring nature. You have a lot of projects in the Amazonia. Can you tell us more about that? So how is this change in the market going to help you and the confidence to actually move money from the north to the south?
Absolutely. Nature is a critical solution to climate change. Of course, we need to move away from fossil fuels, number one, but we cannot get to the targets of Paris without protecting and restoring nature. That's something that the science makes very clear. We have the opportunity to avoid 6 gigatons of emissions by protecting tropical rainforests and peatlands and wetlands around the world. And we have the opportunity to remove up to 5 gigatons of carbon every year by restoring forest ecosystems. There's about 1 billion hectares in the planet where we can do reforestation and agroforestry in a way that, of course, not only sequester carbon, but also restore ecosystems for biodiversity, which is a second crisis together with climate change, all while generating sustainable incomes for the communities that are going to be most affected by climate change, which is the Global South. So with that in mind is that we started this company to focus specifically on nature-based solutions and to bring these technologies that are advancing exponentially. AI and geospatial, we're sending new satellites every week to orbit that are sequestering high-definition images of our planet. And we have AI advancing in bounds and loops, allowing us to process all the data and to make simulations and predictions of our planet. And those are the tools that will allow us to know where to go and develop projects, ensure that the claims and the carbon accounting of these projects is done right, and monitor that the projects progress correctly, and empowering the local communities that need to do this work on the ground, and giving trust to the corporates and to the financiers that want to help protect and restore nature as part of the climate plans. So quite excited about this progress.
Fantastic. So let's think about if someone has a project and if they want to say, this is how much carbon I can sequester from the atmosphere through my project of restoring the land, planting new trees, etc. What challenges do these project developers have today?
They have many challenges. I would say the main one is finance. Many of these projects.
We have Standard Chartered in the room, right?
There you go. These projects need upfront investment. Something's crazy in South America, where I'm from originally. It's easier to get a bank loan to deforest and to agriculture than it is to reforest and sequester carbon. The banks don't know that you can actually make money by reforesting the land. So
that's crazy.
It is.
It should not be allowed.
Another thing
Maybe
is
for 2024.
Another thing is crazy is that the land is more expensive if it's deforested than if it has a forest in it. So these are distortions of the market.
And I also heard about collateral, that you can't even use a collateral, right?
Correct. Distortions of the market that doesn't give value to the environmental services of ecosystems. But to your question, finance is something we need to solve. We need companies to be willing to invest upfront before the credits are delivered. Growing a tree takes years, right? So companies need to be willing to come in early, pre-issuance, and invest in these projects. And we need financial institutions to finance that gap between the beginning of a project and the issuance of the carbon credit that will originate the income for these projects. The second challenge is technical capabilities. They're focused on the rules. We're focused on the tools. These
very good.
projects need data. They need to simplify. The methodologies are very sophisticated and complex. A farmer on the ground just needed to be simple, right? We're building some of these tools. There are other technology startups that are also building tools, and we think that with finance and tools, we can really unlock the full potential of project origination. We need orders of magnitude more projects than we have today.
Can you tell me about the collaboration you launched with Vera?
Indeed, Vera is one of the main issuers of carbon credits in nature-based solutions. They are investing a lot on digitizing their platform and their methodologies. And we announced this year a pilot in which we are helping with the digitization of a forest methodology, in which we are automating one of the modules, some of the modules of methodology. These methodologies have several modules in which you have to report the carbon stock, the baseline, looking at the surrounding area of a forest, selecting control areas that are relevant to the area of the forest that you're trying to protect or restore. And we automated that with an algorithmic approach that is going to be pre-approved by Vera, allowing projects to just get that part of the process done faster. And this is just the beginning of a larger collaboration that we hope to have with all the standards to automate and standardize that data calculation.
And the reporting. So I think this is what
Absolutely.
we need, right? So once you have the standards and you have tools to ensure that you are actually capturing that CO2, then hopefully these will unblock the market.
Well, I'm going to use that, rules and tools. I think that would
Great.
be fabulous. That's a fabulous way to put it.
My last question, again, COP28, come to action, right? We need action. We have no time to lose. 1.5 degrees is very, 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 very close, less than 6 years. We don't want to overshoot because we have no idea what's going to happen to the planetary boundaries. So what action do you want to see from COP28? Have you seen the action that you expected, or do you expect more from this COP? Annette?
Well, I was very heartened by a number of announcements yesterday, not only really the endorsement of voluntary carbon markets by a number of NGOs, great credit for our work by Mark Carney and John Kerry, and very gratifying that the UK Treasury representative said that the UK is actually preparing to endorse our Integrity Council work and to integrate our standards into their regulatory processes. And also the Commodity Future Trading Commission in the United States issued guidance that they announced yesterday, saying that the guidance is for exchanges, and says, not surprisingly, that exchanges that they regulate, if when they trade carbon credit credits, that they or futures on those credits, that they need to ensure that those underlyings have high integrity, and they went through what standards they think should apply, and they bear a remarkable resemblance. And ultimately, we're hoping that they sort of officially say the CCPs, they do reference the CCPs in the guidance. So I think we're seeing a much greater relationship between the voluntary market and the compliance market and governments. So we're very happy to work together so that we sort of provide sort of an end-to-end solution to the problems that we have.
Okay, so I'm hearing that you are super pleased with the action so far. What about you, Diego?
I'm very excited by all the announcements and all the closed-door conversations that I've been part of. There is a lot of progress being made in every front of the climate economy, so to say. And my wish for 2024 is that the world gives a new chance to carbon markets. Like every other market, every other industry is evolving through trial and errors. And we need to tell the positive stories. I like to say that a tree that falls makes more noise than a forest that grows. And there's a lot of good things happening on innovation in this market, and we need to tell those stories. I know that for journalists, bad stories drive more clicks than good stories, but we need the good stories as well.
Not at Bloomberg.
Not a Bloomberg.
But we need good stories of innovation, of success on the ground, and we need more capital. We need much more finance going into this market and in these projects.
Fantastic. So thank you so much for being with us today.